Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Kechidori.
Hi guys, and welcome to another very special episode. And I'm so thrilled to have our guest here today because today we're going to be talking about something very special, which I know business owners are going to love because it gives you the foundation for success. And that is to do with your image. And perhaps we'll dive into branding and anything that helps you to stand out in your industry. And with me today on the show is my dear friend Trevor Stockwell as my co-host. And our guest, Dr. Kuiljeit Uppaal. Dr. Kuiljeit is an amazing lady with with a long list of achievement. I'll let her tell you about that herself. But she has done incredibly well for herself, for her clients, and also is out there helping people right where they are. Trevor and Dr. Kuiljeit, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, UK. And thank you, Trevor. Nice meeting you all, and thank you for inviting me.
Incredible. We are honored to have you on this show. Now, before we get started, I know we had a long session talking about your achievement. Would you just dive into who you are and perhaps also professionally some of the things you have done?
Sure. So, basically, what I have done is something I will talk of a minute later, but probably I'll just tell you about who I am.
Yes.
I come from the country of India, firstly. I'm born and brought up here. And I come from the Defense Forces background. My dad was in the Air Force, and my husband's an ex-army guy. So I have been brought up in this atmosphere, which is everything to do with discipline and integrity and passion for your country and, all of that. And I think it's kind of become my core system. In the way I operate and the way I think. So I'm very happy with the way I am. And fortunately, of course, I've also had a chance to travel across the country because of my dad moving every 2-3 years on transfers. And the same thing happened, of course, with my husband when I got married to him. So I've kind of educated myself across the country. And I've had the good fortune of meeting a number of people. And of course, very young in life, I was able to kind of get into the adaptability mode because of constantly changing schools and meeting new people and new states. And in India, we have so many states that speak different languages. Yeah. So getting access to new languages. So it's been wonderful. It's been a beautiful journey as far as my growing is concerned. And of course, I also have to say that I was born with this bug in my head, a bug that talks of curiosity. Yeah. And that made me an extremely avid learner. It still keeps me going. I'm a very avid learner even today. And I always was very inquisitive, always very curious to learn. And I think that curiosity led me to kind of, study multiple subjects. And in the bargain, I traversed across multiple industries also. So I wanted to be a flyer. I turned out to be an aviator. I started off with that. And then I moved into advertising and made movies. And then I moved into media, which was everything to do with journalism and selling space and stuff like that. And then moved into IT, where I was into taking care of training solutions of various kinds, CBTs, WBTs, and, suddenly getting into training content, creating books and all of that. And then into education hardcore, where I've actually contributed to the creation of a few hundred educational books in various subjects. And then research. And today, I don't know what's next, by the way. But this is my journey for now. And yes, educationally, I have, because of these journeys that I've spoken of, I have a PhD in management, specifically image management. I happen to be the first PhD holder in this subject in the world. And I'm the first image scientist having done that subject. And of course, with my invention. Apart from that, I have about 3 months. A second is a master's in English literature, and a third is a master's in journalism and mass communications. And I have some other professional certifications which are to do with psychometric analysis. So I'm an expert on that. And I also practice NLP. I also do mind mapping, and I've learned a few other things like creative movement therapy and color psychology analysis, a few other things. But anyway, I don't want the list to carry on. But yes, what I wanted to say is I am always willing to learn, in short. And that's what Kuiljeit Uppaal is all about.
Yes, and one of the things I love about you is you have spoken on some of the world stages, really giving your knowledge to other people, which is incredible because it's one thing to want to learn for yourself, but it's another thing to be prepared to educate others in those areas, really moving a generation forward, like when you started in the image management, when you did your PhD, you really set a pace for others to follow, a foundation for others to build, which is incredible.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Like I said, for me, learning and probably even giving is a part of the same journey. So I believe that knowledge is meant to be shared. So I'm just on that journey. The moment I find a person who's intrigued or is interested in knowing, I'm happy to share.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Let's dive into it. For business owners here who are looking into their image management, maybe for the very first time, perhaps they are facing different situation, and it has come to their awareness that they need to take control of their image. As a business, perhaps, or even as an individual, where should they start?
Where should they start? Good question. I think the first thing that I think they need to do is, because I think there's this complacency of sorts that I'm good, I'm a rock star, I don't need to do anything about myself. So I think the starting point actually is acceptance from within, the acceptance to tell yourself that, look, there is lots to be done. I am not perfect. And I need some help probably, or even if I don't. But for a business owner specifically, I would say it would be acceptance of the truth that we don't invest enough in ourselves in comparison to what we invest in our products, for that matter. There's a huge scope to be an incredible version of yourself, but I don't think we even take it seriously. So I think it's extremely important to understand that you need to first have that inner acceptance of yourself for the person you are, and accept yourself for your supposed flaws and imperfections, but with the modus operandi that I want to get better. Awesome. So that I'm more impactful. And because when you're more impactful and everything starts flowing in a certain direction, ultimately, of course, you actualize your dreams through success. So I think it's very important to start there. And then, of course, the journey starts in terms of what exactly is image, and how can you deal with it, and so on and so forth. So if you want me to share that further, I could
you just took the words out of my mouth there, right there.
Okay, so basically the subject that I have kind of brought together, which is PRIM, I call it PRIM, that's the acronym I've given it, that's persona and image management. And it basically deals with individuals and the process of their enhancement towards being a more confident, a more powerful, a more incredible version of themselves.
Right.
So let me just, in maybe a few seconds, tell you what exactly it is. I'm not going to go by definitions, but just probably tell you what it is so that people understand. I think a lot of people across the world are fairly lost with what exactly is image. So there are a couple of things. Firstly, it's a continuous process. It's not an overnight makeover. A lot of people believe that, you just go to a beauty parlor and, kind of get yourself up, go buy some clothes, and there you're done. And your image is bang on. Well, it is, but it's not really image. It's just a makeover you've had. So it's not really the final solution. So it is a continuous process, and it's a proactive one. It's not going to happen just like that. You have to take constant measures to do something about it. And so you have to put in your effort. So predominantly what you're doing is constantly evaluating and controlling the impact you make or your appearance makes on yourself and on people. I'm telling you in a very, very layman kind of jargon.
Yes.
So when I'm talking of evaluating and controlling, and this is constantly happening day to day, you need to do that all the while. Now, the impact, I'm talking of the response it has on yourself also, because how many times, and I'm sure your listeners will agree with me when I say, let's say you're shabbily dressed, or you have maybe a shirt that accidentally got torn over on the shoulder. I'm just saying, hypothetically. You walk into a place. Aren't you going to feel a little conscious because there's something wrong there with your shirt?
Oh, yes.
Or if you're shabbily dressed, or if your shoes are not so clean. So it's having an impact on you too, right? It's not only about impacting people. It first impacts you. And that will start making you cringe from within because your shoes are shabby, they're dirty, or your short or your shoulder, is kind of giving it away to other people. So your body language or what you communicate is already showing a hesitation, is already showing a lower self-confidence, right? So it's impacting you. And that's where it really starts having this resulting response on yourself.
Yeah.
When it comes to others, of course, when they see you that way, no marks for guessing, it's natural, right? They're going to suddenly say, okay, I mean, that's really dirty. The pair of shoes is really, really dirty.
Yeah, they have a different perception of you.
Yeah. So broadly speaking, it's your entire appearance. And let me tell you, when I'm saying appearance, I don't mean that this is only to do with your clothes. Your appearance refers to you in entirety, as an individual, as a brand, as an entity. All the qualities about you, the values you have from the inside, the aura that you have, your entire package. What are you from inside and how you are on the outside? Everything put together is your appearance. It's not only your external manifestation. So one has to watch out that, when you're talking of image, it's everything to do with inside because, your inner thoughts get you to act in a certain manner, get you to react in a certain manner. So everything is together. It's an integration. So that's what your image is. Now, coming to the larger perspective of what would be, the image in terms of what people would broadly believe, let's say it's like a divine or a powerful trident of sorts, okay? A trident that has 3 prongs to it.
Yeah.
The first one would be, let's say, your persona, your personality, which means what's your core foundation like? What are the values you have? What's your belief system like? What are the kind of attributes you have in terms of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions? What is it in terms of you internally? The second thing would be the actual image part, which is typically the 6 elements that I have devised in my scientific study and research, which is basically self-concept, verbal skills, your clothing, your body language, your etiquette, your grooming, all of that. And of course, all of that in line with your authenticity and your appropriateness in terms of how you kind of handle this, how you control it, and how you evaluate it consistently. The third element, which is also very important specifically for business people and professionals, is strategic self-management in terms of all the skills and attributes that make you more productive at your workplace, in your business, in your life as such. So what helps you to, let's say, plan your goals in a more defined manner, your outcomes? How do you kind of manage your commitments better? How do you manage your time better? How do you take initiatives? How do you not procrastinate? How do you handle your networking better? How are you handling your entire business more tactically? All the kind of life skills, that we can think of. We know, WHO, for example, has listed out 10 life skills. They involve decision making and problem solving and creative thinking and critical thinking and empathy. And there's a whole bunch of them. And interpersonal skills is a very core element there. So all of that put together. So if I'm looking at Prim at large, we're talking of that trident, the trident of these 3 things. And each one is extremely important in its own way. So it's a big journey. When somebody steps into wanting to, kind of enhance herself or himself, it's a long journey. But it's not an endless one. It's a long journey in terms of understanding to some extent, but the rhythm of keeping it going, because like I said, it's not a makeover. So it's very, very important, critical, but it's something that once you've understood, you just need to keep the cycle going. It's like breathing, it becomes a part and parcel of you.
Yes.
So over a period of time, that's exactly what you do.
Yeah. Incredible. Let's just single out perhaps just one of these core elements that we've talked about on this triad, perhaps the personality. If somebody perhaps has discovered that their personality is having perhaps a negative impact on their progress or their peers or in their business, and they would want to start working on it for the positive result they want, where can they start?
Okay. So in fact, the first stage would be, I'll call it stage, I'll not say really a step, because it would have many steps within it. But the first stage would be to discover your navigation systems. That's the way I typically say it would, because when I say navigation system, I'm talking of the way you navigate your inner being, your inner self,
Yes.
your external self, and your social self. So all three put together. So the first starting step would be to identify your inner navigation system, because everything starts from inside. It's always inside out. When your inside is sorted, it's much easier to handle the outside. It's simpler also on the outside. So your core foundation is what we're looking at here, in terms of what are the values that trigger your thoughts. Every thought leads to an action, and when these actions are done repeatedly, they form a habit. And these habits and behavior patterns will build your character and reputation. So it becomes very important. This will all effectively, kind of get down towards the actualization of your goals. So the thoughts that you have are being triggered by your core value system. And that's why it's so, so important to ensure that your inner navigation system is taken care of. The inner truths about yourself. So typically, there's a whole, of course, series of tools that if I'm told to race against time and complete some task, I may do it I might do it because of paucity of time. I might have given it 90% instead of 100% to it, but I'm not going to be happy. So what's happening? Something that's so core as part of me, that is triggering off an unhappiness in me, despite the fact that I did do the work, but I'm not happy there. So your values again become very important, because you will take decisions in life. And if your values have not kind of aligned with that, they've not resonated correctly, you'll still be unhappy, despite you having gone ahead. So decision making also gets controlled. And when you take decisions, it's affecting your outcomes. So you come down again back to the starting point. Your values become very, very critical to understand what your values are and then operate out of them so that you're happy in whatever you do. So that's the starting step. Coming to the external part, which is your external navigation system. That's everything to do with your management of your body, in terms of your body language, in terms of your fitness, in terms of making sure you eat correct, of course, making sure your postures are correct. There are a lot of people who take this very easy, but actually it's a very critical part. Like they say, health is wealth. So it's important to be very fit. So your body is taken care of. And of course, in the Indian dimension, we talk of a lot of mental wellness also, right? We talk of yoga, we talk of meditation. All of that comes as part of the routine that one wants to pick up. There's something that I've coined, which is I call MAPOCP. Okay, that's an abbreviation. It's an acronym actually for movement and body correction for power image. So that's something, of course, which people can do standing in front of the mirror. Just to keep it simple for the people who are listening, so they can actually just evaluate themselves in the way they stand. Do they keep their stomach in and their shoulders back and upright? Are they naturally inclined in the way their spine is supposed to be, or do they have a kind of hunch of sorts? Do they sit and stand correctly? Do you take the pressure on your knees, or do you take it on your hip bone? There's a Feldenkrais method which actually says, you ease the pressure off your knees and take it onto your hip. So maybe people can Google that out and find out more about it. But anyway, so that's the second part. And then comes your social navigation system, which is everything to do with your interrelationships with people. How do you connect with people? All your interpersonal attributes form part of that. Your networking skills come as part of that. How do you connect with people? Who are the kind of people around you? That's again very important, because in today's times, we have everybody who befriends a CEO, for example, who's doing well, right? Everybody wants to be your friend. But you may not want to have everybody as your friend, and you have good reasons as to why you wouldn't want that. Because if a person contributes to your escalation towards positivity, great. But there are a lot of people who are also toxic. You don't want such people around you, right? So you need to have something called, what I've coined a term called gravity circle. Being an aviator and also always being very excited about the mystical space. So you look at the solar system, right? You have the sun and you have the 9 planets, and they gravitate towards each other, don't they? There is gravitation that's holding them there. So you're like the sun in between, and the people who are around you, they constantly have an impact on you in your life. Wow. So it's very important that your gravity circle is filled with the right kind of people. You don't have people who are toxic. You don't have people with a crab mentality who pull you back. You want people who say, go on, dare to dream, make the most of it, but who don't just flatter you for the heck of it. That kind of variety. So it's very important to have good people around you, um, especially as business owners. I think it's extremely important and extremely energizing when you have good people. Also, you have your relationships that you need to foster at work as well as personally. And all of that gets covered within your social navigation system. How are you dealing with people? Are you the kind who gets buckled whenever you have somebody who's not so good, typically, or something happens within your work scenario which pulls you down and you just kind of drop dead, with your energy? So, are you that kind of a person? If you are, then you need to do something about it, right? Because as a business owner, as a leader, you need to always be right there, but you're human alongside. So it's a catch-22 in one way. But it's important that you're able to learn techniques to be able to bubble yourself out of this. So, in fact, I have a bubble technique, which actually, that's a form of an NLP technique, which you put yourself into a bubble or into a glass bubble. So you're watching the scenario around you, but you're not taking it in. You've bubbled yourself. So there's a technique which I kind of help people to understand more. And you can actually keep yourself in space that is positive, and you can keep yourself intact there without getting hampered. It's all a mental state of mind. Then there are visualization power techniques, which of course there are a lot of things that I do. A million tools actually, which I've been building slowly and steadily over the period of time. So yeah, all of this is very, very important as part of your first step, which is the personality, like I spoke of. And the other elements, if I may continue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So the other elements, when we're coming to the image part, like I spoke of the 6 elements that were devised out of scientific deduction. So there is the stage where I help people to reinvent and reboot, which means all of these 6 elements are put into incubators. You run through an incubator, wherein every single part and parcel of each of these is taken, and you are kind of taught. But I know that is for my personal engagement in terms of mentorship. But for the benefit of your audience, let me just share a few things, and especially areas which kind of get ignored a little more.
Yeah.
So let's say verbal skills, for example. So when we're talking of verbal skills, there are some very gross errors most of us make. The first thing is volume itself. Why do we communicate? Because we want to be heard, right? You want to make interaction. But I've come across so many people who speak in a volume, one volume, regardless of the size of the audience. And that is crazy, right? Because you're not heard. So what's the point? So I think as a business owner specifically, when you are sitting across the table with someone, obviously there's a volume that is reaching only one person and just over a couple of feet away. But when you're talking to a wider audience, you may not have a mic with you. You need to boost your volume, right? Mm-hmm. So these are small little things. Then the tone of your voice. I have a very interesting thing to share before I move on. There was a very interesting research that happened in the 1950s about the impact of a message. We all are constantly communicating, right? There's never a moment when you are not communicating. You cannot not communicate. You're always communicating, sometimes through your verbiage, sometimes through your body language, but you are always emitting a message to people around you every single minute. So it's imperative that the message you make is a well thought through one and not just something that's randomly going out, right? It's just logical. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, that's not what's happening with most people. We need to make sure that it is a sane message thought through. But there was this research that was very interestingly done, which studied the impact of the message we make as people. And that's really interesting. So I'll just tell you what the outcome was. It said that 55% of the message, the impact, comes out of your body language and appearance. Can you imagine? 38% comes out of the tonality of your voice. How do you use your voice? And only 7% actually comes from the content of what you actually say. Can you imagine? We go exactly the reverse, don't we? We actually spend all the time trying to plan what is going to be the core essence of what we speak and the content and all of that. And we wage this war of 93%. whereas we can actually reverse the entire situation. And this is, for most, it's always an eye-opener. Every time I've spoken of this research and the impact, every time in the audience, people go like, whoa, really? And we never knew this. So I think it's a very handy hint for most people who are listening to understand that you can start paying attention to that 55% and 38%. So coming back to the verbal skills, the tonality that I spoke of, how do you use your voice?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know how to use their voice. There's a voice culture technique. But regardless, I think for just starters who've never known it, I think it's important to understand that when you pitch your voice, you need to have somebody tell you, hey, you're sounding shrill, or you're sounding just too bass. You can't be heard. You can't be understood. So you need to understand where you sound good, and take an opinion from people around you to understand how you don't have to sound like a canary, but you have to sound nice and pleasant, and, get that to build as a part of your system, as a habit, so that in your interviews, in your, sales pitch, wherever you're using your voice, you're able to pitch at the right, sound, so that you sound beautiful, you sound lovely, and you're hitting that 30%. It's very important to understand that. When it comes to the verbal skills, of course, like I mentioned, you also have clarity, in the way you speak. Do you have a mother tongue influence that comes in? Or do you have, your inflection not happening correctly, where you're emphasizing on certain words? Good orators do that all the while. So you need to know that. How do you enunciate? How do you pronounce your words? Are you clear or are you not? Because communication has to happen, right?
Mm.
So these are small little things that really are of value. And all of this comes as part of the impact in your incubator. Like, you go past all of this training really when you're sitting in mentorship with me. So I'm just sharing a few things. There are many, many more. So verbal skills becomes very, very critical, like I said. Also, how fast do you speak and how slow? Like, there are people who just drag their speech forever, almost like people are like, listeners are ready to sleep. So you need to ensure you keep a balance, and you're audible, you're also comprehensible. So all of these things become very important. But then we come down to, let's say, the self-concept. That's the mental rational picture you have about yourself, And so it's very important to understand what are your kind of attributes you have. To a large extent, your ethics, again, your values come and play one more time. But the most interesting part of self-concept is this journey from the body image that a person has in terms of what you look like. Everybody has a certain body image. And research has gone to show that most of us are not happy with the way our bodies are. We always have something to say that is nasty about our bodies.
Well,
We're always bashing ourselves.
Especially now in the world of social media.
Absolutely. It's become a huge issue today. When often I've asked people to go and stand in front of a mirror, just a full-sized mirror, and look at themselves and say, okay, what is it that came to your mind? Some of them say, I say, my nose is not nice. Somebody says, my hair is too curly. Somebody says, I'm too short. Somebody says, oh, I have too much prosperity showing in my abs, and so on and so forth. Now, they don't seem to like their bodies. It's a huge issue today.
Yes.
We are not comfortable. And self-love has become so scarce. It's so sad, but that's the truth. And we need to start understanding that it starts right there. Your entire self-concept starts from your body image. And if you have a good body image, and I'm not saying that you have to look like the Miss India. No, you don't. Or the Miss World or the Miss Universe, or for that matter, or Mr. International. It's acceptance. It's acceptance that, firstly, there is rarity to perfection. That's the truth, right?
That's right.
And so you need to gracefully accept yourself in the way you are, with your flaws, with your imperfections, because they make you unique. And uniqueness is a great thing. You must celebrate your uniqueness. So to accept this with full heart and accept yourself and love yourself, that's a good start. That's a good start to, in terms of your build-up. Because when it comes to self-concept, guess what? Your body image, if it's a good body image, it leads to a good self-image. And from there, it leads to a good self-esteem. And then further down, upwards, in fact, not down, but upwards to your self-confidence. And then self-competence, and finally, your self-actualization of goals. So this whole journey through life, if you ensure that your body image, which is so critical and so easy to handle actually, It's all there, right, in the mind. So if you kind of handle that well, you know you've got a good journey ahead, because then things just start falling in place.
Indeed.
But I think most of us go wrong there. And so we start getting impacted at various levels. So
Yeah.
self-concept becomes very critical in terms of your developmental levels.
And I'm glad that you're pointing that out, because when we talk about these things, people become very conscious of it, and they can start working on it to a point where, after maybe 6 months to a year, they're in a different place. And it all plays out in building a business, because, business takes all sorts of facets.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the good news is the very next element that I'm going to share, clothing. The good news is that even if you have body issues, clothing is a smart way to handle that, where your body silhouette can be made subservient to your clothing silhouette. So the silhouette is nothing but a body line, right? Like the outline.
Yeah.
So with smart techniques, which is something that I normally share with a lot of people, and there's a whole international style skill that I keep sharing with people. So there's a whole styling quotient that you can create for yourself, where you will not even have that body issue as much. It'll kind of just hide those flaws. The whole purpose of that is to hide flaws and accentuate all which are your assets, And normally the focus is to try and get everybody's attention on the newscaster area, which is your face and your shoulders. So that's the magic of good clothing. But here again, most people make so many mistakes. I mean, there are people I've seen who are large, they are almost obese, and they wear these tight-fitting clothes. Now, guess what? Even if the world didn't know that you were large, you have actually got attention. You've got everybody's attention that look, watch my levels of prosperity. It's just totally wrong. You need to understand your body type. And it's very simple. Let me give a quick tip to your people who are listening. So understand your body type. All you have to do is get an inch tape, measure yourself at your shoulders, okay? And measure yourself at your hip, okay? Now, in the way we are all carved out as human beings, our rib cage takes a natural bend inwards, right? So we all have that little bend inwards at the waist. And now, take this to be an ideal if I say that your shoulder measurement and your hip measurement is pretty much the same, which means you've just measured yourself shoulder to shoulder for that eventuality, then that's not the best thing to happen. So it's safer to kind of always dress a level up than a level down. That's another thing. Etiquette is extremely important. It's your manners, their guidelines. It's like, a code of conduct that you lay down for yourself. And it's extremely important to have that always as part and parcel of your life, because that shows what your grace and your poise and, your social level is with people. When you connect with people, everybody likes to be treated with respect. So it's nice to kind of know that. But unfortunately today, most people have kind of, translated the dress down into the way they deal with people, the way they connect with people. Yeah. And I don't know if that's the best thing, because that also kind of, is a drop down on your value system, Wow. So it's important to understand that etiquette is not only about dining etiquette or, email etiquette. It's everything in totality in terms of the way you carry yourself. It's important as a business owner or a professional to carry yourself with grace, poise, and elan all the while. And that's much safer, and it's also more sought after if you look at the cultural dimensions of the world. Today, it's a global village. You're interacting with people from all over the world. So you never want to not make the best impression.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you never get a second chance to make the best first impression. So you always have to hit the nail on the head, bang on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So there are so many more things, in terms of your grooming, which is like, how you package yourself to perfection, your hair, your skin, your nails, your body odor, your mouth odor. All of these things need to be taken care of. Make sure that you're hygienic in terms of, I've seen people whose collars are dirty. It's funny. I mean, they're sitting as owners, and how can they ignore that? It's something that one would never even dream of. But people make mistakes. And I don't know where it comes from. but that's the way it is. But this is not something I should kind of ignore. Yeah.
It's the awareness. Well, Dr. Juliet Kuiljeit, we are about to come to the end of our time here together. You've shared some amazing, amazing information, and I know there's a whole lot more to learn. And for those who want to carry on learning from you, where can they find you?
Okay, so I'm available on almost quite a few social media with my name. That's Dr. Kuiljeit Uppaal. So you can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course my website, which is www.kuiljeituppaal.com. So everything's in the name basically, as long as you get my spelling correct, because my spelling is a little different. You can find me on social media and connect for everything that I do.
Yes. So while talking about everything that you do, what are your main services that you help people on a regular basis? Because you covered quite a lot. But
That's true. Okay, so
specifically,
yeah. So I do multiple roles as a scientist, as a mentor, as a trainer, etc., etc. So yes, you're right. So people can connect with me. If I'm talking of business owners, a lot of them connect with me for mentorship because I'm handling a lot of CEOs across the world, in fact, who are on regular mentorship with me, day-to-day basis. I'm mentoring them for pretty much anything in their life, and they haven't let go of me. They don't want to let go of me. So that's one thing. They also kind of engage with me for their workforce. So I train human capital. But apart from the image part, I do a lot of corporate skills. So that's the kind of engagement done for groups. I'm a life coach. So I do a lot of work for groups as well as individuals. And yes, I'm a speaker. I'm a global speaker. So when people want to hear me, they, again, kind of reach out to me for my, shall I say, little bit of knowledge that I have to share in the various dimensions. So right from my own subject matter to various things, I talk about multiple things.
Yes,
right from human rights to pretty much anything actually.
including your own invention.
Yes, my invention. Oh, I missed telling you about PIQ. That's the world's first ever persona and image quotient, which is a measure that has been derived scientifically and again empirically tested. It helps you to assess your persona and image on all of those parameters that I've spoken about. So it's nice because I have a manual version, which I've been doing pre-COVID times. And right now, I'm almost in my final stage of the beta, where it's going now online. And anyone can take that test online. It's probably a 45-minute assessment. And you will be, post the assessment, it takes about a week or 10 days roughly, because apart from what is driven through the system, there is also my entire lab of people who are actually watching you on video, on audio, to assess various other things, which fortunately we are able to do. Right now, AI hasn't reached that level where we can, ask artificial intelligence to step in and understand emotions, understand every frown and every, movement of your body. So we need human intervention. So you get a detailed 25 pages odd report that actually goes into micro levels of every single thing about your image, indicators and constructs that actually tell you where you can improve. So it's a great, shall I say, reckoner of sorts for you to improve in terms of enhancement of your image. So I would really urge people to, once it's ready, I think it should be done probably by year end maximum. And also, I have my course, if I may say that.
Sure.
I have, thanks to the COVID times, I've actually launched not yet launched, I'm kind of there, but I'm launching an online course, which I never had planned for earlier, which will actually get people through the 12 weeks of training where all of this will be taken care of, and then I'll put them into a cycle where they can just kind of keep it rolling. So, and then of course I've written my book, Prim and Powerful, which is also ready for launch. I'm just waiting for the printers to come up with some more of their workforce, because I think they're kind of understaffed right now.
Yeah.
So they won't be able to print out as many copies. So I said, okay, I'm holding horses right now. So post Christmas, New Year's, maybe early Jan sometime, I'll launch the book. And again, a lot of the techniques are mentioned there. And it's very easy to read. It's not scientifically written. It's written like as if you're having a cup of coffee in my living room, and I'm just sharing it. So people can pick up a copy of Prim and Powerful also. So yeah, lots coming up. They just need to engage with me on social media. I guess they'll know what's happening.
That's really good. So just before we are going to wrap this up very shortly, but just what would be, thank you first of all for sharing everything that you have. There's so much in that people need to listen to over and over to get different bits of it. But what would be like the first step you would recommend? Would it be approaching you to do the assessment? What was the first step to raise the awareness that you would suggest for people? Like, I don't know what I don't know, but I know I need to change something. That kind of approach. What would you suggest?
Okay, it works in two dimensions because I've seen both varieties of people. So I'll give the options to the people. So one is where you start working on your core value system, as I mentioned. So just think through what is it that's really close to you. Like I gave you the example of excellence. So what is it that's really close to you? Because that's your starting point. And once you've done that, then you move ahead in terms of your decision making, and you kind of start re-looking at yourself and try and see what you can do based on what I've shared, the various things in terms of the elements. The second thing is to go exactly reverse, wherein you get your external sorted. I wouldn't recommend this, but there are people who get excited because it energizes them to start working on themselves internally. So you can actually go and, look at your body. You start with your measurements and start looking at your verbal skills, start looking at all of those little tips that I was talking of where people make mistakes generally. So try and look at where are you going wrong? Look at the toxic people around you. Start doing those kind of drills first, and then move inwards to start introspecting and trying to see what are you all about. Let me put it in very simple words. Let's say 4 steps. The first one, how do you see yourself? So the third step would be typically when you would talk of how do you think, how do you react, how do you respond. So that's everything to do with your inner being, right? And then the last step, which is also very critical, is how people look at you in terms of all of these things. So what do they think of you? How do they think you dress and groom? Or what do they think in terms of the way you think and the way you respond, etc., etc. And what you need to do definitely is when you engage with people whose opinion matters and who are honest. They'll call a spade a spade. Okay, they're not going to sugarcoat for you. So you want a true opinion, right? So that becomes your starting point. So the moment you've come up with this analysis of these 4 things together, that's your point A. You need to move to point B. That's where you want or where you aspire to be. So that's where your journey starts. So I think for a good start would be at least the combination of these 4 things to understand where are my gaps and start working on them.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. Well, you have been absolutely brilliant, and we certainly would love to have you on another show, perhaps to focus on one of these great aspects we have not touched on. But truly, your generosity with your knowledge is incredible. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. I have had a delightful experience with both of you, and I've completely enjoyed this. Thank you so much, and I would love to, of course, come back one more time. I look forward to that. Thank you so much.
Awesome. There you have it, guys. If you want to know more about image management, you know where to go to. In fact, at the bottom of this recording, there will be a link to Dr. Kuiljeit Uppaal, so you can reach out to her for more information. And again, as usual, don't do life alone. Reach out to somebody who has done it or who's doing it if you've got any questions. And once again, thank you for trusting us to bring you some amazing guests. And I know over the next few weeks, we've got amazing guests lined up for you that are going to be talking about leadership, and some of it about resilience, as we found ourselves in some critical time right now in the world. So it's going to be great. And once again, thank you for being here on the show with us. I look forward to catching up with you real soon. Thanks, Trevor and Dr. Kuiljeit Uppaal.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.